Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Breaking the Glass Ceiling. This is your host, Kofi Thompson, and I am super excited for our guest today, Dave Robinson. So, if you guys don't know Dave, he is a lifelong learner, athlete, and adventurer, and a native to Richland, Virginia. He serves his community as a certified master storywork coach, and Dave has long possessed a passion for personal development work and has been guiding his clients in improving their health and wellness for well over the last decade. Working with clients all over the globe in 20 plus countries, Dave specializes in identity work, overcoming substance abuse and addictions, negative self talk, and helping his clients move forward after hurtful or traumatic experiences. Dave is one of the top experienced coaches in his field with over 1,100 storework sessions facilitated, while also appearing on a guest on over 100 podcast episodes, now including Breaking the Glass Ceiling. Beyond coaching, his deep interests include running ultra marathons, obstacle courses, road trips, permaculture, and spending quality time with his fiance, Ruslana, and their cat, Bijou.
Nailed
Awesome.
it. Nailed it, man. Nailed it. I really
Cool.
appreciate
Yeah, of course, brother. Of course. Welcome to the show, man. So I'm super excited to dive in. And what I've found is I always find it like quite interesting the journeys that people take in life. And oftentimes like, the unexpected roads that we follow. So I'm curious, like, how did you find the calling of coaching? Or how did that, coaching find you in your life?
Yeah, great question to start. Um, I I do believe I was born for this in terms of this even particular skill set and style of coaching. But I wanted to be instructing others and helping others professionally since the very beginning. I mean, I went to college to be a high school history teacher. I have a history degree and an education minor, right? And, up until about 3 weeks before I graduated, that was the plan. I was applying to master's programs. I was going to go teach high school history and coach soccer. But I had a falling out with the subject matter. I realized that, hey, like, I didn't want to be in a classroom per se. I didn't want to, spend weeks of my life talking about Christopher Columbus, for the umpteenth thousandth time or like
Yeah.
whatever. I just felt like there was other things out there. And I had spent the past 4 years falling in love and learning a ton about powerlifting specifically. And then because of that, strength and conditioning principles, nutrition
Mm.
principles, recovery
Mhm.
principles. So that passion allowed me to get a job as a full-time intern at the University of Richmond in the strength and conditioning department. So I
Something.
worked with, yeah, football, men's soccer, women's soccer, field hockey, lacrosse, was a personal trainer, trained youth athletes. So then I'm coaching, but it wasn't exactly what I wanted to
Mm.
coach. And I found that I lacked freedom and flexibility of time, of income. I was spending like 15 hours a day in the gym and then I didn't want to work out, So um, I ended up spending a year and a half there and then deciding to try to find some stability of a career and do the thing I was supposed to do, put on a suit and tie, and got
Yeah,
into finance for 6.5 years myself, So we probably have a lot to talk about offline as well when it comes to that. But it's
absolutely.
spent 6 years as a financial advisor, and again, I like helping people, teaching people, but wasn't in love with the subject matter.
Mm.
So I I ran into my mentor in this work at a networking event actually while I was in still doing financial planning. And over the course of us getting to know one another personally, and
Hmm.
as far as like uh, buddies go, we went to rival high schools. It was 10 years apart, but we still went to
Yeah.
rival high schools. I'm a Monacan chief, right? If you're from Richmond, you know Monica, and you also
Oh,
know
yeah.
Midlothian High School as well. So, big rivals, but we got along really well, and I
So
learned story work from largely from him while picking up from a bunch of other different places as well. So, um,
interesting. Yeah.
coaching becomes my passion. It's my purpose. It's what I love to do. But I took a side track and lots of trails to get here to find this particular modality and way to serve clients.
I love that, man. Thank you for sharing. And one thing I see as a reoccurring theme is you're always kind of in that service, like educating, like helping people, like kind of elevate or learn more so that they can do more, which is really cool because, one thing I find is that we tend to have like an essence for the things that we're like passionate about, but that can evolve and become cultivated in many different ways, which I find to be really beautiful because, in the same way, I also was always very service oriented. I went from like healthcare into I actually did a little bit of personal training, not too extensively, but then I landed in finance. And I always kind of like wanted to be able to uplift people and, help them. So I feel like a lot of times, people may not necessarily, know or realize like what a coach does and the impact that they may have. So like, what would you say are some of the, impacts that you have on some of your clients as a coach? And what do you see like some of the, biggest transformations that people have in working with you?
So I used to coach fitness, and there's a big difference between these three terms, and I think this is important to kind of set the context. There's fitness,
Mhm.
health, and wellness.
Okay.
Fitness, health, and wellness. Fitness is totally measurable. We can have someone run a mile or be on an assault bike or,
Mhm.
do as many push-ups as they can in 2 minutes. There's a lot of testing you can do for fitness and find out, like
Yeah.
how well does somebody move their body through space and time, right? Uh, Health is different. Both fitness and health can also be measured, and it takes a while to develop and a while to affect and a while to change. One workout isn't going to change anything. One healthy
Mhm.
meal isn't going to change a whole lot. There's we can take blood work and find out how healthy someone is,
Mhm.
right? So those two things are measurable. Wellness isn't, right? And
Mhm.
wellness alternatively can be felt in an instant, right? And wellness is how you feel about yourself or how you uh, feel about your life situation at any given moment, right? And so I could
Mhm.
be injured. Let's say I'm injured bad. I'm in the hospital, right? And so I'm like, I'm not fit. I can't go run a mile.
Yeah.
Not healthy, right? Maybe I'm sick. Maybe I've got some bad blood work, and I'm like, hey, I'm not certainly not healthy. Like I'm don't not feeling great at all, right? But um, my mom walks in, and my best friend walks in, and they're coming in with my favorite movie, and now they're hanging out, and my wellness can instantly be changed. Or I could have a thought that shifts things and puts things in perspective, and then I feel better about myself, and I feel more emotionally well, mentally and emotionally well and spiritually well, and that can be felt just like that. And so my professional work is in the realm of wellness and has been for
Okay.
the past 3.5, 4 years since I found this modality of story work. And so what happens with people is they experience things, good, bad, or otherwise. Sometimes the stuff that's bad or otherwise is very hurtful to them. Sometimes it's even haunting to them or traumatic experiences. People tend to also talk negatively to themselves and about themselves. We're our own worst critics sometimes. We're our own worst
Mhm.
enemies sometimes. Um, Negative self-talk, shame spirals, negative feedback loops. All of these are things that happen to everybody. We all have imposter syndrome sometimes. We all have limiting beliefs, things that hold us back, right? And these are all things we've experienced. And story work and what I do as a coach, I can help shift those stories and move that energy so that when we relate to those things, it doesn't hurt as bad. It doesn't upregulate us as much. It doesn't put us into that fight or flight state. Um, we can help shed limiting beliefs. We can help create a whole bunch of space. We can help
Okay.
shift imposter syndrome, so we're affecting the wellness side of the equation through mental emotional work.
Wow. Wow. That's super powerful. So you can be like fit and healthy and have a great career and all those things going well, but you may not be necessarily well, or like your
Right.
wellness, I guess, scale may be on 10 to the lower side, and that can be from that negative self-talk and maybe not healing from those past experiences, what you're saying.
Absolutely, Kofi. Absolutely. And, we can add to that. There's various buckets of life. Two of the
Yeah.
most important ones are fitness or your health. I'll even lump
Mhm.
those two together and call it fitness, right?
Yeah.
And your finance, right? Your
Yeah.
work, what you do for a living, where you spend a lot of your time, the majority of your time.
Hmm.
So the word time for life, where you spend a lot of your life is what you do professionally to earn money to do the things that you need to do and provide for your family, right? And so those two are very important, but we also have family and friends. We also have faith. You can lump anything spiritual or existential into that category, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
We also have fun, right? We are
Hmm.
human beings. That fun is the point in many ways, right? And so a lot of times those three factors overlap and can really uh, encompass wellness to a large degree. And
Hmm.
if someone's just focused on their finance or, just focused on their health or uh, maybe just focused on their family, that happens a lot of times as parents. We get really caught up in just our family and we're maybe letting go of our health or we're letting go of, work, we're letting go of other areas of our life. We're certainly maybe not having as much fun. And, so those are all factors of wellness. And if we're not conscious and careful to address the areas that we're lacking, but also understand for us at various points of our lives, like what's really a priority for us
Hmm.
at any given point of time with any given goal in mind. Story work can help to shift those conversations, highlight those blind spots, and
Yeah.
start to help prioritize the things that people really, really want. And that's its versatility, because I would call that future oriented. So we talked a
Hmm.
little bit about past, we talked a little bit about present with the self talk, and now this is more like, hey, what do I actually want? What do I want to architect for myself?
Yeah.
So it's
Absolutely.
very versatile.
I love that. And I want to definitely dive more into some of the beliefs and self-talk. But I really appreciate your, approach because especially, I find like as a male, it's very easily to be very, outside focused, focus on the, external things that we see, right? I want to get my body right. I want to, get my finances right. I want to, on the outside, that superficial look really good. And we're very rarely, I feel like, in society told, hey, like, how do you feel? Are you like, do you have like, positive beliefs versus like negative beliefs? Like, what is your why? Like, what is the story that you're telling yourself about these things? Like, are you doing this because you feel like you may need some approval, or you may need, you feel like you have things that you don't like by yourself, so you're going to try to cover them up by a bunch of superficial items in life? Or are you doing it from a place of like, hey, I want to be able to, give back to the world? And yeah, I do like nice things, so I'm going to try and, achieve this stuff, but I ultimately want to be in a position where I can, help more people out that I care about. So like those, things that are not seen are oftentimes the most impactful, because I mean, I'm sure you see it all the time. People outwardly have an immense amount of success, and then we find out that their relationships are wrecked, or something, they're not happy, they're depressed because of some thing that's going on in their life that you don't really see on the outside. So I think that's so powerful. So do you believe that like um it's only entrepreneurs or athletes that need coaches? Do you feel like, everyone could benefit from, having a coach in life?
Humans are very poor compartmentalizers. Very
Mm-hmm.
poor. Just like we're terrible multitaskers. We can think that
Yeah.
we are, but science and statistics say otherwise, right?
Yeah.
It's the same thing with compartmentalizing. And so what I mean by that is, um, for example, I've got a client that was a professional baseball player, right? And he pitched for one of the New York teams, and he actually went to the Olympics and pitched, which is super cool. And when
Mm-hmm.
we first or second time we hung out and were this is I think the catalyst for us working together. Um, he was talking the whole time we were hanging out together, and we were up in New York and with a mutual friend of ours, and he was talking about this girl, this relationship he had. And It's 8 years long and it was off and on, and it's been ever since college. And, they had just broken up for good, it felt like. And,
Mm.
it happened 6 months ago, but he's still, all up in his head about it. And it creates anxiety, and then he oscillates, with that. And then he's depressed, and, then he's angry, and like all these different things, all these different emotions that are perfectly valid human experience emotions, right?
Yeah.
Um, but I asked him, like, do you ever think about her during a game? He's like, oh man, I try so hard not to, but you know, sometimes I'll just see a brunette in the crowd, and I just goes right back to, what's her name? And,
Mhm.
you know, uh, and he went on and on for a minute. And I said, well, do you ever think about her when you're on the mound pitching in a game? Like you're like actively like on ESPN, like out there throwing, thinking about the girl. And he goes, yes. I was like, well, what does that do to your pitching? He says, it makes it terrible, like I'm
Yeah.
not concentrating on what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I get, like it's awful. And then I know I shouldn't do that. And then that makes it way worse. And I typically like fall apart. I'm like, ding, 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 stories, man. So
Mm.
um, sub pitching in front of a million people to, working at your job in any capacity, like being a parent, doing anything, right, that you are responsible for and need to do, like especially professionally or especially, from a family standpoint. And yeah, the stuff at work or the stuff from home or the stuff from your past or the stuff inside your head or that health thing you're dealing with or that, God, this thing failed so many times. Like, am I going to try it one more time? The questions, the what ifs. Most people, again, can't compartmentalize that and leave work at work and home at home and health in its own little bucket and otherwise. So,
Mm.
entrepreneurs, professional athletes, moms and dads, uh, up and comers, someone just in the total dumps, anybody. I mean, my oldest client, I did a session with an 82-year-old last week.
Well, yeah.
Before that, my oldest client was 80. And so I was pumped to gain a couple of years on the record scale. But then my youngest client has been 8, and neither of those two people are professional athletes nor entrepreneurs, so um, we all have stories. We all have
Yeah,
belief
that's
systems. We all have perceptions, and we all use words so we can shift the words and get a different outcome.
that's really cool. And thank you for sharing that. And I think that we all face challenges, so and we all can benefit from guidance. Like, one thing I've realized that like if you're trying to accomplish, something in life that you may not have experienced, you've never done before, like it makes sense to, do that with someone else, whether it be a coach, a guide, or some type of mentor. And we definitely live in a society right now where it's been so like we've been like over, you know, we've idolized the self-made, mantra, right? And we've idolized like, oh, like I'm gonna do this on myself, and not have any help and not have any type of assistance. And I think that sometimes people see it as like being like kind of weak or like, or a novice if you ask for some type of assistance or have guidance, but it only makes sense, right? Like we go to school and have teachers because we are learning from someone that has done more than us. We play sports and we have coaches so we can understand how the game works and how to excel in that. And I feel like sometimes, I've actually had conversations with people about this, early on when I started, because I, work with, different populations now. But a lot of times people were just starting out. They're like, hey, do I even need an advisor? I'm like, hey, like you know, if you're working with money in any capacity, it probably makes sense to have some type of guidance. The same thing, like if you're like, are you going to ask for a personal trainer like when you're already fit and when you're already running ultra marathons, or are you going to ask for them the first day when you start working out? Like learn how to take the proper steps, because I think and I've definitely been there before, but I've wasted a lot of time and energy making mistakes, or I could have just saved that time and gone a lot further if I had some type of guidance.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say a lot of times that the three hardest things to do, it's the first is accept that you could use some help. The
Mm-hmm.
second is ask for help. And a lot of people stop there. But the third is actually receive the help when you have it offered or given. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, we all go through things. We all need guides. And I think the YouTube university, so to speak, the self-help, self-guided thing can get you interested and it can also get you started. But then to
Hmm.
get good or to make progress after a certain level of time, really that beginner stage, it helps tremendously to have a coach, have a guide, have a teacher, have a mentor, have
Yeah.
somebody walk you through some things, especially when it comes to things that have big time overlap to everything else, i.e., your money, i.e., your health, i.e.,
Hmm.
what goes on in your head on a day to day basis. So,
Absolutely. I always tell people, whatever you're trying to overcome, it's either going to cost you time or money. It depends which one you value more.
sub sub the word time for life and say that one more time.
Yeah. So whatever you're trying to overcome, it's either going to cost you life or it's going to cost you money. Depends which one you value more. I like that. I like that a lot.
That one hits hard for me.
So, as people are, I'm sure, a lot of people are going to listen to this and be like, wow, like maybe I should think about coaching. Maybe I should think about, having some type of guidance, whether in business, finances, and their health. So, you have a lot of experience in these different fields as a guide, coach, mentor, advisor. What would you say is the difference between like a good coach and a bad coach? So people can like understand like, okay, as they go and look for somebody, what things they should be looking for, what are kind of like, red flags, essentially, things like
Yeah,
that.
what a great question. Um, I've actually done this exercise before. We did outlines, or I did an outline of how I would define a bad coach, and then alternatively what that translation was, from a straight word swap, like what a good coach would look like, right?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I think a great coach, first of all, I think anybody can be a guide. Anybody can be a mentor. We are all impacting or influencing somebody in some way.
Mm-hmm.
And many of us, most of us, I think, are really truly good inside and want
Mm-hmm.
to help people positively, right? We may not know exactly how to do
Yeah.
that or do that professionally full time, or but we're all a role model to someone.
Mm-hmm.
So I think those things that would make a good role model or a good leader in any capacity also is a great starting block for what makes a good coach. Someone who is consistent, someone who is supportive, someone who can give like shoot you straight and do it objectively, someone that you like know, like, and trust. Those are the
Mm-hmm.
three keys to work with any professional, I think, as somebody that like, and trust, right? Um, what separates a good coach from, or a good leader or a good mentor from a great one is, I think, specificity and specialty, right?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, for myself, for example, I'll give a fitness analogy that's not related to me. Like I am searching for a coach right now for myself in terms of running 100-mile ultra marathons. Like I
Yeah.
have run 3 ultra marathons so far. The farthest is 50 miles. And to think that I could run a 50-mile event, go home, eat some food, shower, go to bed, probably sleep pretty terribly, wake up a couple times in the middle of the night, wake up and it's light outside. And if I was going to do a 100-mile race, I would still be running. Like that messes with my head a little bit. That
Mm.
messes.
Yeah.
So it's a different animal. It's a different ball game. And so I'm searching for a coach that has the specialty of running 100 milers and teaching people how to do that. And to like, I don't think I would hire somebody who has only run 50 miles before in their life to coach me for somebody, to do this thing that's twice as long or twice as big. So I think it's important
Mm.
that the coach you're working with, it's like walk the path you've walked to a certain degree. Maybe
Mm.
not exactly specifically, like I think if you're a father, like, I think you can still help women even though you've never been a mother, right? But
Yeah.
at the same time, right? I think it's having that ability to create a space to actually talk about stuff and get stuff done, I think is
Mm-hmm.
really valuable too. Because if I'm too nervous or too afraid to really tell you my finances or really tell you what I would
Hmm.
really want to do to accomplish my goals. I think you may judge me or I'm just holding back information. Like that's not going to have you do your job nearly as effectively as you possibly could either.
Yeah,
So being able to open up and create that safety, I think is another vital piece. So um,
absolutely. I
yeah,
love that.
then it helps to have the sauce too.
Yeah,
I think everybody's personality is going to shine in some capacity, and some people are better suited for some jobs than others.
yeah. Very true, very true. And I think those are all really amazing points. Because yeah, it's, the experience is so important. And, another thing I'd add on to that is that empathy as well, too. Like, because for example, if you have a guy coaching a girl on relationships, like, yeah, they may not necessarily have had that same experience, but like, as a guide or a mentor, like being able to put yourself in your client's shoes and understand what they're experiencing and really, being able to like, take, the glasses off of yourself that's kind of blocking your perception or view and really put on their glasses and be like, okay, how can I best help this person from where they're at is, so important. So I love all those points that you made there. So now I want to dive into the nitty gritty here. So, we talked a little bit about beliefs. And first I like to just, I guess, start off with, why do you feel beliefs matter? Because a lot of people will just like continue to operate in life. They're like, very action oriented. They're, very just, kind of systematic in what they do. Their belief system may be all sorts of different types of all different directions, but they're producing results, right? So, I mean, why do you feel like, beliefs matter? Like, if I were to say, like, if I want to, I don't know, start a relationship with someone and build a family, like, how do my beliefs actually impact, how well that actually goes?
I think you're going to end up looking or going where you're looking, right? You're
Hmm.
going to head
Okay.
in the direction you're looking, right? And so we're still moving forward, but I'm looking at negative stuff, for example. You're going to see a lot of negative stuff. I'm still moving
Hmm.
forward and I'm looking at positive stuff, for example. You're going to see a lot more positive stuff, right? We see and notice the things that we deem important. It's part of
Interesting.
what's called the reticular activating system, which is
Hmm.
part of your brain that scans your environment for things that, uh, again, are important to the individual and then omits everything else. So it's like
Hmm.
what happens when you buy a new car. You buy a brand new green Jeep Grand Cherokee, and like you're the
Yeah.
man driving it home, and you're like going to the work the next day, and it's like, oh my God, there's a green Jeep Grand Cherokee.
Hmm.
That was another green Jeep Grand Cherokee.
Yeah.
What the heck? I parked in between two Jeep Grand Cherokees. Like this is, but it's not that there's any more of them anywhere. It's just that you notice them now because it's very important to you in this time frame. Like it's
Mm.
the new thing. It's the big thing. It's where your energy has gone recently, and so the brain's going to scan for that and find it. So um, I also think that kind of what we were talking about with our buckets earlier, so to speak. Like you can be good at
Mhm.
stuff and not be happy, be good at stuff and not be fulfilled. You can do stuff and not even be good at it, but you're just sitting here doing it over and over and over again because that's what I should be doing. That's what I believe. And so I think that if we're looking at fulfillment and satisfaction and happiness, then our beliefs are going to be critical because beliefs you can sub for thoughts, you can sub for really they're made up of words.
Yeah.
They're made up of what you speak or write down or think, right? What's inside, right? And those patterns of words are going to lead to conflict, or those patterns of words are going to lead to peace. I mean, it's just we can talk ourselves into a really terrible mood. We can talk ourselves out of the mood or into a better mood, and they're just different
Yeah.
words, different beliefs, they're different thoughts. So
Yeah. I think that's so, I mean, that's so true. And like, it's really cool to think about because I found that like based off what people say, as you mentioned, and we're going to dive into the power of words, but based off what people say in the belief systems, they usually tend to like really narrow their scope of view based off of those beliefs, right? So as I was starting in my financial planning career, I remember like starting off and like there was probably a group of like, 10 or 12 of us that, start off in our class, essentially in the firm. And a lot of the people there, like, I mean, we initially got a lot of motivation. Everyone felt really good. And then once you started working, a lot of people, they were like, man, like, I just feel like, you know, there's not anyone that wants, any type of financial planning. I feel like, everyone's just like so, negative or, closed off and all these different things like that. And, they just really had this, huge negative sphere of like beliefs in their, outlook towards people they wanted to try and see if they could help. And I before I even realized it, very early on in my life, I was always a pretty positive thinker. Whenever I went into situations, I'd always just kind of see the, positive. And if, something negative happened, I wouldn't focus on that. I'd just be like, all right, like what is going to continue to motivate me to move forward? Even if I just have a conversation with someone, I'm able to help them budget a little bit more. That's a step in the right direction. And by focusing on those positive things, you really start moving towards a much better direction. And you start moving towards like, even if you make progress and you're focusing on negative things, I feel like it's just difficult to sustain that like over like a long period of time. Like I feel like it's you start it's almost like you have a parachute, on your back as you're trying
It's
to
dirty
run.
fuel. It's dirty
Yeah.
fuel. It gunks
Yeah.
the engine. It can get the airplane up into the air. You can be negatively motivated and negatively mindset
Yeah.
driven. You can, there's a lot of things that it might get you up and get you started, but
Hmm.
it's not gonna keep you going, and it's gonna gunk the engine.
Yeah, absolutely. And like it really does change your perspective too. Like, you know, I one thing I always, kind of would see people as like comrades, essentially. Like I kind of looked at the world like, hey, like, we are here to like create with more people. I personally do feel like, most people have good in them. Then the day, I think it's a very small percentage of people that are truly bad eggs. And I've met people that are like very, a lot more narcissistic. They're like, man, like I feel like everyone's out there to get me or, whatever it is. And it's very, interesting. Like, when I sometimes will sit there and be like, okay, like I look at this person's life and they may not have nearly as many connections. They're always very like skeptical whenever they meet someone. And I feel like that belief system like truly leads to that outcome because they, are going to be more of a narcissist, when or not narcissist, pessimist, as they enter into different situations, focusing more on that negative. So it really does have such a, massive impact there.
Uh, the definition of a spell is a word or collection of words of great influence.
Mm,
We are spelling words, speaking words, creating words, and creating stories and creating our outcomes with really how we think and speak, because then that's how we're going to act. That's the direction in which we're going to head.
mm. Wow. Wow. So like, do you feel like that negative self-talk or those negative beliefs, like, do they also have an impact on like our physiological
Absolutely.
states as well?
Point and great observation. Words affect our posture, they affect our breath, they affect our imagination, they affect how we feel about ourselves, right? If we affect our breath in any capacity, we're going to lead to a different physiological outcome, aka we're going to
Mm,
lead to a different physical state. So I'll give you two examples. The following breath will be different than the one after it, right? So first breath, nice and downshifting, nice and relaxing. The exhale was longer than the inhale, breathing out longer than I'm breathing in. So I'm offloading carbon dioxide and I'm pulling my body into a parasympathetic nervous system state, which is rest and
mm.
relax, feed and breathe, right? Alternatively, and this is going to be exaggerated, and
Yeah.
you breathe like that for a minute, you're working out, all
Just
right?
watching
Like,
you do it is like raising my blood pressure.
your blood pressure raises your heart rate.
Yeah.
That's an up-regulating breath. It's through the mouth. It's in through the mouth. It's out through the mouth. It's quick, right? It's going to lead to a fight or flight sympathetic nervous system response state. And if we are sympathetic too often or too long, versus parasympathetic, right? If we're upregulated and stressed versus downshifted and relaxed, man, that leads to all kinds of dis-ease, disease, right?
Mm.
In the self or cells. And what's I believe is really a cause of many instances of dis-ease is, yes, of course, your physical state matters. Of course, your health matters. And if your breathing or your words are creating stress or conflict internally and externally in your life, like that's going to cause a lot of issues. And so
Mm.
specific words and phrases, aka specific spells, will lead to different outcomes. If I say I hate myself, God, I hate myself, I hate my life, I hate everything that's going on. God, I suck. Oh my God, I can't believe I messed that up again. God, idiot, et cetera, et cetera. Whoa. Whew. Like even saying that jokingly, I have a pressure on my chest
Yeah.
versus, I love myself. Like I got this. Like, man, I'm getting better. I'm strong. I can do this, and ooh, okay, now I'm starting to breathe a little bit better, a little bit deeper.
Mm.
It's what's in the background if you're actually watching
Yeah.
this video. This is the light wolf, dark wolf conversation. The dark wolf is all of those negative things, and the light wolf is all of those positive things. And the one who wins in the battle is the one you feed.
I love that. Yeah, and I mean, it's like it's going from criticism to compassion, instead of sitting there, criticizing and being super hard on yourself and beating yourself down, being compassionate with yourself, as you move through life and, understanding that, you know, we're human, at the end of the day. We're not machines. We're not going to make every single move, in perfection. And, I think it's possible, or I know it's possible to be compassionate but still improve, still be able to see the things that we need to, maybe make a shift on or make a change and, do better, but not beat ourselves up about it. And that really, really, again, it produces two different results. So, I'm curious, like, if someone has had like a lot of, early childhood trauma, and, from that trauma, they, have now created these narratives, have a lot of, negative self-talk, how would you guide someone in like starting to heal, from that trauma that they've experienced?
Yeah,
What would you do? Mm-hmm.
great question. That would be in the, we'll call it in the past, and put that in the hurtful or haunting experience that somebody might have had, or traumatic experience that somebody might have had. And story work is, I think, designed for those types of experiences. So the
Mm-hmm.
first step is having someone who wants to change and wants to feel better and wants to and believes that it's possible that they can have some hope, right? Like actually receive the help, and if somebody can receive the help, then fear is the only thing that gets smaller as you walk towards it, right? A mountain that's way off in the distance, is that big or small? And it's going to be small. And as you get right
Mm-hmm.
up next to the mountain, it's going to be big. Like fear goes the other way. And so when we move towards that fear, what we do is we slowly start to downshift through 4 or 5 various steps. All right. So what differentiates story work from a lot of other therapeutic things, i.e., therapy, i.e., counseling, i.e., like a support group or whatever it may be, is that story work, what we're doing is we're taking thoughts and stories in our head and we're putting it down on a page. We're writing, right? And typically via a Google Doc that you and I are both looking at the exact same time. But you can always pull out your magic pen and write on a piece of paper too if you're
Mm-hmm.
listening at home. Um, but you take a story from your head and then you put it onto the page, or you put it onto the paper or the computer screen. And what that immediately does is it gives you some separation from that experience.
Mm-hmm.
What was in you is now out of you. Just what you were a part of, you were in the story. Now you can observe the story. So we title a story and we write it out on the page conversationally, just like you were telling it to me. And it
Mm-hmm.
just goes down onto the paper. And then where you're going to read it out loud. And typically you're in one of two categories. You're going to be somebody that emotes greatly when that happens, or you're going to be somebody that is numb to it and has like, doesn't have the emotion, right? It's kind of disassociated from it, and there's not going to be much emotion at all, right? It's going to be one of the two things. We're going to cry and we're going to upregulate, or we're going to just be stone cold after that first read, right? A lot of times people think they're done there, which I think makes the third and the fourth step even more potent. It's like, oh
Yeah,
my God, I talked about it, I wrote it down, I read it out loud. There ain't nothing else he can do to me. It is already here,
we're just
made it
getting
through.
started.
Yeah, sorry, you got a couple more steps to go. Um, I'm gonna have you go back through and slow down the read. Because typically we're going to read it really, really fast because we're going to want to get through it. And oh, I really don't like that part. So I'm going to just fly over it. Da, 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 right.
Hmm.
And then we're going to drop the pace, not to like a robot speed, but enough so that you're really looking at it and different
Mm.
points are sticking out to you. And whoa, maybe now, again, instead of being in it and observing it, you're like above it. You can see the different angles now, right? Because you've got the space and you're a little bit, you've just either emoted or you're just now allowing yourself to feel, right? So
Hmm.
we're starting to create that space. We're starting to create some clarity. And then we're going to interject very specific, at specific points, we're going to interject that big downshifting breath that I did, a little bit earlier. That we're going to do that at punctuation points so that the brain can start to anticipate it. And when the brain can anticipate a pattern of breath, it doesn't have to worry about the breath anymore. It doesn't have to think about the breath anymore. It can put that on autopilot and go worry about other stuff, and deal with other stuff. And the brain likes that a lot. And so now we're downshifted. Now we're focused. Now we're calm. Now we're in a different physiological state. What was instantly causing me anxiety or something I've been shoving down consciously or repressing unconsciously for years and years and years. Not
Hmm.
only have I talked about it, told somebody how I felt about it, wrote it down, but I read it out loud and I slowed it down. And now I've got a lot of space in between it. And now I'm in the rest and relaxed state after breathing it. But you can't breathe like that and be upregulated. It's impossible. And so in that state, in that physiological state, our bodies can properly store emotions and properly store memories and like in the right file cabinets of the brain. It can actually heal cells. It can allow us to feel and process our emotions. We're actualized with this experience now, and we've taken a
Hmm.
whole bunch of the negative sting out of it, the pepper that burns so bad out of it, right? And so what often happens here is it's like dumping the weights off your back. It is a true lightening of the load and an accessibility of that healing parasympathetic nervous system state. And that leads to entirely different outcomes in people's lives. Like you sleep better, you digest your food better, you eat better, you move better. You don't think about it before you go to bed nearly as much, if at all, anymore. You
Yeah.
aren't triggered as much by ABC or XYZ, right? You're just you can take out that big heavy thing and just put it aside.
Mm.
And it's like we're moving. Everybody's moved before, right? Everybody's put their stuff in a U-Haul truck and drove it to their next house or apartment and gotten out and been like, oh my gosh, there's so much stuff. This is going to be such a pain in the butt. And you
Yeah.
open up the back of door of the U-Haul and like you move the lamp and the awkward thing that you just shoved in there last minute, and you're like, oh my gosh, like I can't even walk, can't even take one step in here. It's way too heavy, way too much stuff. But you get help and you get a couple friends to carry the dressing or the dresser drawers and the box spring and the mattress and the big L-shaped couch. And once those big heavy awkward no fun items are out of the way, like you can move around in there, you can see stuff, you can see what's in the corner, you can rearrange, you can do a whole bunch of stuff. But we do need help carrying those big heavy stories out of the U-Haul trucks of our brain sometimes. And there is also a whole bunch of clarity and space to be found on the other side of that.
I love that. I think that's Thank you for sharing that. I think that's such a cool approach to be able to revisit, those moments that we've had in life, and essentially, expose ourselves enough to it so we're not so like they don't bring up these, wild reactions whenever we think about those moments. Because, like, going back to the story you mentioned about your friend who you had coached, playing baseball, you know, because that like experience they'd had was still so like triggering, like it would just pop up during moments when he was maybe more stressed, and like that's when a lot of these things will usually come to the surface for us. But getting to that place like where this thing is not as doesn't have that big of an impact on you is such a powerful place to be, because like when you can really own your story and own those experiences, like I really, I mean, I feel like it's being vulnerable, and it really allows you to like kind of take off that shield, but then realize like even if these things are exposed, they're not going to truly hurt you. Like you can own it, and you can live in your truth in that regard.
And humans tend to be all or nothing, right? So we think if we tell somebody something, everybody's going to know about it, right? And that's actually the
Mm-hmm.
exact opposite. Like the three things I tell every single client on our very first session. The first one is that if we get anything written down in a session, it's a huge win. It's a
Yeah.
huge win because we can create that space. We can create some of that distance between the story and us. So like writing stuff down is a huge win. The second thing I tell people is I'm always going to shoot them straight. Always going to
Mm-hmm.
shoot them straight. And the third is ain't nobody ever going to hear about it. Period. So that's another aspect of a great coach is you don't have to tell everybody. You can just tell somebody and have somebody work through it with you and understand that that lightness is still going to be there. That
Yeah.
load is still going to be taken off. That's not your burden to bear all by yourself, all alone. In fact, it's not your coaches either, but we can get it up and out and toss that couch in the dumpster if you want, and
Yeah.
it's up to you. So,
Absolutely.
yeah,
I love that. So, I know that a lot of times people have different definitions for this, but I know that you do like a lot of identity work. But just to kind of like start here, like how would you describe identity? Because I know that it can mean different things to different people.
break down the word so self, entity, being,
Mm,
self being. It's like your I am statement, right? Uh,
mhm.
the way I like to look at it is past, present, and future as well. And I tell my clients that we're the only ones who can truly define ourselves. We're
Yeah.
the only ones that can really sing our own praises or judge us. And we're the only ones who can tell ourselves who or what we can or can't be. And in that context, you can do anything you want in this life, and you can be anything you want in this life. You probably can't do everything you want, but you can
Yeah.
do pretty much anything you want, right? And so, um, identity, we often think we're much closer to the past versions of us and much farther away from the idealized future versions of us than we actually are.
Mm,
So, we're definitely not the same people, Kofi, you and I, than when we were in high school.
yeah.
Definitely
Without a
aren't the
doubt.
same people 3.5, 4 years ago, pre-pandemic. Definitely aren't the same people from, beginning of last year or heck, last Monday, who knows, right? Like
Mhm.
we change all the time. And there are identities that we have carried or may still be carrying that would better serve us if they were left behind or dropped or shedded, right?
Mm,
Sometimes even against our will. So I'll give you an example. Um, I have always, since I was a little kid, held the identity of an athlete. It wasn't until I got to college that I started to hold and value the identity of a strength athlete, right? Or a powerlifter specifically, but then that evolved into being a strength athlete. Well, I've always been a soccer player ever
mhm.
since I was 3 years old, and I'll be a soccer player till the day that I die. I love the game. It's the beautiful game. I've still played. I pay to play it now, like
Yeah.
I love it. Um, but I had an injury back in 2019, a pretty bad injury. So,
Mm,
a 9 out of 10 back injury. And I had broken my collarbone before, I've broken my wrist before, I've had some, ankle things go on, had concussions, like yada yada. But this was my first, like, what I would say is a major injury. I couldn't pick up a
mhm.
pencil. My standard of living was affected negatively for quite some time. And I didn't know what to do. And I didn't counsel anybody or have any help or like accept the help that I was offered. And so I had a setback and got hurt again 3 or 4 months later. Right. Not as bad, but still like erased all progress. And,
Yeah.
you know, so I realized that not only was my words affecting me, or were my words affecting me tremendously, because every time I would twinge or hurt or tweak, or I would think, oh, my back is effed. My back is effed. My back is effed up. And I must have said that or thought that 100 times a day, consciously, maybe even more
Mm,
unconsciously. And so that was the reality that I was living in. Um,
mm,
but I
mhm.
knew that I had to give up the identity or let go of the identity of a strength athlete. I thought forever, but it only turned out to have to be for a couple of years so that I could change my habits and change the things that I was actually doing so that I could heal and stay healed. So if I was going to continue to be a strength athlete, I was going to continue to lift heavy weights, and that wasn't what I needed to heal my back, once and for all, and to be healthy and whole again once and for all. I needed to do something, in fact, entirely different. And
Yeah.
so um, I made the conscious, painful at the time decision, but right decision to shed the identity of a strength athlete and redefine it, and to change my back is effed to my back is healing, or I'm in the process of healing my back, or one day my back will be healed. Not my back is healed, because that
Mm,
pissed me off. That really pissed me off. I tried
yeah.
to do the exact
Yeah.
opposit of, my back is effed. I was like, well, my back is healed. And like, dude, I can't even touch my toes. My back isn't healed. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know,
Yeah. That.
versus my back is healing. Like, okay, now that makes me want to go do my rehab. I can heal my back. Okay, yeah, now I'm definitely going to go do my rehab. And thus led to different outcomes. So again,
Yeah.
identity is critical as far as where we want to go and how we want to get there.
So, this brings up a question for me. So, like, how can you go through changes in identity without having it, be that like very large impact that like almost, completely ruins your life essentially, right? Is
Yeah.
that, yeah, like, because that's, a very hard thing for, oftentimes people to do. Like they may, you know, be, an athlete, right? And they may have had their career and then they may be, their body may not be able to keep up the same level that they're doing. And now they have to transition to something different, which can be very, difficult, especially if you're doing it at a high level, or maybe you're in a career and you're at the cusp of retiring and now you have to figure out what you're going to do for your life. And we know there's many stories of people that just pass away after a few years. So how do you like go through that transition of identity and not have it be as painful? Or is it like maybe rooting our identity in other things that in life that can't be easily taken away essentially?
I love the last thing you said, right? I really love having your identity rooted in things outside of your profession or outside of your
Mm-hmm.
hobbies or outside of your, careers or whatever. One
Yeah.
of my identities is I am a conduit of love, right? And there's a very special story as to how that came about. Probably won't get to it. And that's one of my favorite uh, phrases, right? So that's an identity I can hold, whether I'm a coach or whether I'm a paraplegic, God
Mm-hmm.
forbid, or whether I'm, an athlete or like whatever, right? Right, whatever. Um, we can shift that identity instantly based on the words we're using
Mm.
and
Okay.
based on how we actually act out those things and how we actually act out that identity with our habits and with our actions.
Yeah.
Um, it doesn't have to be a long time. It doesn't have to be a big shift. It can happen very, very quickly, right? Um, but if we root the identity in the things that are intrinsic, we're going to have a much better opportunity to not have to worry about, oh, when I retire and now I can't be an attorney anymore, like what the heck am I?
Hmm. Yeah. No, it makes so much sense. I think that's such a, like, I think that is such a powerful thing to do again, because like when you have your identity rooted in those intrinsic values, things that can't be taken away, like I'm someone that's a learner, I'm someone that's a giver, I'm someone that constantly wants to help other people improve and grow while I also improve and grow. Like that can be you know that can be trying to look for the word but that can happen in so many different ways in life. Like it doesn't have to be necessarily in that career capacity that you're doing it. Like you don't necessarily have to be able to to be a conduit of love. You don't have to be someone that can run around and you know talk to every single person. You could be, unfortunately, if you're a paraplegic, you can still do that, just by, having a conversation with, any person you meet and, showing them, the love that you have for them as a person. And I definitely believe that for a lot of people that are like high performers or business owners or people that just spend a lot of time, working on their craft or their passion, it can be really easy to root a lot of your identity in that thing. And unfortunately, one thing that is constant in life is change. Nothing is consistent. Like things are always changing. And, there will come a day where that thing that you spent a lot of time doing may not be there anymore. So it's so important to, have your identity, as you said, rooting those intrinsic values. I really, really love that. So can you like, as I want to like continue on this identity piece before we wrap up here, but like, can you have like a conscious identity that's like different than your subconscious identity? What I mean by that is like, can you, you know, I guess have an idea of like, or like say like, you are this thing and be like, hey, like I'm a person that is, I don't know, let's say that I, not an entrepreneur, and I'm not really working a lot. I can be like, hey, like I'm a millionaire, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm doing all these different things, kind of outwardly, but that be, and then, but, or even say like, hey, like I'm going to like leave my company and start a business and be super successful. And you say that outwardly to people, you kind of, you have affirmations, all those different things, but then inwardly, can that differ from like your subconscious belief and like, do you see what I'm saying there? Like,
Yeah. I mean, you know, can I speak things into existence or manifest things like
yeah, yeah.
without actually like going out and doing it? I think the answer is no, but I do
Mhm.
think the speaking things into existence is going to help, and it's going to help you talk you into the things and keep you going doing the things that you
Mm.
need to do to become the person to then fulfill that identity, right? So um, I held the identity of I'm going to be a world class coach, or I'm a world class storywork coach before I became a world class storywork coach. But that was my aim point. That's where I was headed. That's okay. So what does a world class story coach work or a storywork coach do? And I
Yeah.
reverse engineered, and then I did those things a lot, and then figured it out. And I think that that can be the steps that people take in order to step into those identities and
Mm.
and
Hmm.
embody those identities.
Yeah.
And again, it doesn't need to be perfect. I can face my fears a lot, very often, 8 out of 10 times, but because maybe I, you know, was scared, or maybe I didn't push forward, or maybe I turned around and retreated those 2 out of 10 times, that doesn't mean I'm not courageous. AKA, I
Hmm.
am still courageous, right? I am still brave, or I can hold those identities of being a chance taker or a risk taker, even if it wasn't 10 out of 10. So
Yeah.
we're not aiming for perfection, but we do need to do things. There's the other side of the coin of, like there's the action side, and it doesn't need to be perfect, but it does need to get done. Um,
Yeah.
but the manifesting and the speaking things into existence and the unconscious and subconscious and the visualization and I mean, I have a perfect day exercise that I love to do with clients where I'll have clients write out their 1 year perfect day, and then either their 3 year perfect day or their 10 year perfect day. And I'm
Mm.
talking, this thing is a creative writing exercise. This should be pages and pages long. This should read like the first chapter of a good book. Like, you're putting yourself in the place, you're putting your butt in the place your heart wants to be. And you're doing that on the page. And the result of that is that people are going to snap into this reality one day of, oh my God, I'm living my perfect day. Or, oh my
Yeah.
God, this is exactly what I wrote about, this element in this thing. Right. And if
Mm.
you aren't doing that, you're not going to know, first and foremost, probably not going to have that awareness, but you're also much less likely to be there doing that thing, to
Yeah.
put that into conscious and hold it in your unconscious when you're not thinking about it.
Yeah, I love that. And I'm gonna rephrase how I, kind of led there, but like it's your uh, as you said, your external identity can differ from your, internal identity, right? Like we may not necessarily have the physical evidence and all the things that we believe internally. And it is important to know that actions are important here, right? I can't manifest, the perfect person on my couch. I can't manifest the perfect business or manifest all the finances not doing anything. That action has to follow. But we truly do like, move closer because that, RAS system to the things that we, do truly believe about ourselves internally. And like, I grew up in Section 8 housing. Like I really didn't have a lot of finances like growing up, but I always, in the back of my mind, I was like, hey, like I want to, live in a life that is, I want to be successful. And my definition of success has definitely changed, in the last 10 years. Before, when I first started out, it was, finances. But, and that has changed. But I realized that because I constantly held that belief before I had anything in my physical world to validate that, I held on to that belief and continued to take the actions to move myself forward in the direction that I, truly saw. So I think that's, a really important piece that our audience can take away here. Like, if you have an ideal for what you want to experience, like, clarify what that looks like for you and hold on to that. And then, make sure you're taking the actions, but like, it's so important to like be clear as to where we're going. That's one thing that I oftentimes focus on with my clients because like you're always moving in a certain direction. And a great quote I love is the wind favors the man who sets his sails. So, by actually being intentional with that direction that you're moving, the forces of, depending on what you believe in, the forces of the universe, the divine, God are going to help you move in that direction. But you have to be clear as to where, you're going.
Absolutely. You tap into what Stephen Pressfield calls the muse, right?
Yeah.
Uh, that the genius from the Latin side of things. And yeah, and from a finance standpoint, let's say I'm not a millionaire, and I'm saying to
Mm-hmm.
myself over and over, like I'm a millionaire. Money's coming to me, money's flowing to me. I'm here, right? Et
Mm-hmm.
cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Um, Time isn't real anyway,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So, uh, okay, great. Like, that's why my word of the year in 2024 is inevitable.
Mm.
Like, what is going to happen is inevitable. It's
Yeah.
it's going to happen. It was going to happen anyway, right? I don't even know what it's going to be, but it's been inevitable, and I'm just trusting it. And so, I think if we're holding that vision in our mind's eye, then we can unconsciously hold different identities than we do consciously.
I love that. Love that. Awesome, Dave. This has been exciting, and I appreciate you again for coming on and telling us more about your story and how you help your clients, move to the next level in their lives. So, as we wrap up here, I have a couple of final questions for you that I always love to ask. Um, so this first one was actually inspired by one of my greatest podcasting mentors or people that I look up to. But if you were getting to the end of your life and you could only pass off, three lessons to the children, to your children, the world, and your family? What three lessons would you choose to pass off that you've learned in your life? Uh,
Love yourself and others. Go all the way. And ask yourself, what if it were easy? And know that it matters most when it's hard.
mm, I love that. Love that. And how would you describe someone who is breaking their glass ceiling?
I like to think of an upward spiral. There's
Yeah.
a Sanskrit term, and it actually looks really cool. And then dude, I tried to Google this like twice, and I can't find it. Oh, and it's like one of those like really frustrating.
Yeah.
It's like, no, this exists, and it's just so if you're listening to this and you somehow know what I'm talking about, like send me a message because I'd love to figure out what this thing's actually called. But it's an upward spiral, right? And it's represents our life, and
Mhm.
what was our ceiling once we go on through this inevitable space of time and once we progress and grow is eventually going to become our floor.
Mhm.
And that we continue to progress and continue to evolve. And it reminds me to ride the wave you're on. Like we're going to have ebbs, we're going to have flows, we're going to have beautiful, clean, glassy waves, we're going to have big, scary monsters, and
Mhm.
we're going to successfully get barreled and make it all the way to shore and have it be a great ride. And we're going to get slammed and dragged underwater and held down and, yada, yada. But like ride the wave you're on, and really good things are going to happen.
I love that. I love that. Is there anything coming up in your world, things you'd like us to, help you support or cheer you on in, like that 100-mile marathon?
June 28th, man. Y'all start praying. Each prayer
Yeah.
equals a mile that I get done. So
Yeah.
please send them up for me. No, I'm kidding. Um, yeah, man. So what I'd love to do, if it's okay with you, I'd love to offer your listeners a free session, up to 5, and first come, first serve. And I'm one of the sixth is going to you if you want to take me up on it. I'd love to share a story work session with you, Kofi. It'd be super
That would
cool.
be awesome. I'm definitely going to take advantage of it.
Awesome. Awesome. And I can share the link with you afterwards. But that's going to be calendly.com/Dave Robinson/free session. Right. And that's a great way to take advantage of this. And again, first five, first serve, I guess. So,
Yeah.
um, but I'm a full-time professional storywork coach. Like, this is what I do. I don't have a second job. I don't have a second career. Sometimes I think my homestead in the backyard, my little third of an acre here with the garden, is my second job and career, but it's just a deep passion of mine. So I'm either, if I'm not coaching, I'm outside in the garden or I'm out on a run. And that's my life. So it's what I love to do, and I'd be happy to help folks that are sees the value in it, but there's nothing particularly I need to shout out at this point in time.
I love it. I love it. Well, we will definitely be supporting you when you do that 100-miler as well.
Thank you.
So what are the best ways to reach out and connect with you, Dave?
I'm on Instagram at daverobinson.coach, daverobinson.coach, and my website is workyourstories.com, workyourstories.com. Shoot me an email, send me a message. And again, free sessions for the folks who would like to give that a whirl. But yeah, I love this format. I have loved this conversation and really appreciated your insightful responses and like really great questions. This is a great show that you host, and big props and much respect to you, man.
I appreciate it, brother. I appreciate it. And thank you, man, so much again for coming on to the show. This was a super exciting conversation. I'm sure that once it gets released, people are going to be hopping on that coaching you have as well, too. So again, appreciate you coming on to the show, and we will see you guys soon on Breaking the Glass Ceiling.